You got to be really careful with these cheap hubcaps. They crack. Stock Toyota ones don't, unless if they're like old and brittle, then they do. You just got to go really easy on those. If you don't think you can do this job, either carefully or half under the vehicle, put jack stands on there. Don't rely on the jack. Oh, what are you thinking? 12 or 13? Okay, our caliper bolts are 12 millimeters. And don't use air tools to break these free. That's how you break them if the bolt's a little bit seized in there. – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – –– – –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– As you can see, my calipers are on their last leg. My rubber seal here is starting to deteriorate. So it won't be long before I'll replace those. Nope, I wasn't thinking. I got the back 2 bolts. Now that sucker's big. What do you think, 18? Let's see here. That is 17. Gotta keep that camera out of the fender for you guys, YouTube. Okay, top one, you need a little extension so I can clear the strut bolt. Mind you, I'm working on a southern vehicle. If you're up in the north, this will not be anywhere near as easy. This isn't much different than doing it on a new vehicle in the north. Wonder if I can move that light in a little better. Without casting too much shadow. Don't forget your pad orientation. If these drop out, I would have to compare it to the other side. Okay. Some of these rotors are going to have like a little retention clip right there. Mine aren't on there. Or you may, depending on the vehicle, or if this originally had it, have a screw. But mine will come right off. Well, almost right off. Grab a rag here. I'm using the centric 120.44052. This is the Off-Rock Auto. It's their premium rotor. I'll keep these as emergency backups. The other reason I'll keep them is there's a possibility the original ones I just took off, even though they're 40-something years old, they could be original Toyota and made out of a lot better iron material than these. So if these want to warp right away, I'll throw these back on. These weren't that bad. I just wanted to freshen mine up. Everything else on the vehicle is pretty much new. So from the factory, they have an anti-corrosion solution that's sprayed on there, basically a type of oil. So you want to go ahead and use your brake cleaner, and especially on the shiny surfaces where your pads are going to touch, you want to make sure that's clean. But I go ahead and do everything a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and do the front first, because then when I flip it, I don't have this part touching the bottom because it's raised up from the hub recess. Unless if yours had a screw, it really doesn't matter the orientation you put it. On mine, what these are used for is so that if the rotor gets seized and you can't get it off, you can thread a nut through one of these or both of these holes to basically, you know, make like a gear puller effect and press it off. Okay, now that I had to touch it a little bit, go back to my brake cleaner. I'll kind of clean where I touched it. Okay, now we got to get this piston bore back in, which, as you could tell, mine's definitely not very healthy. We hope it doesn't leak and everything presses back fine right now. This one's got a nice flat back. See, now I would have been better off doing my calipers fresh, because what's going to happen is any wear and tear on those calipers is going to make one half, either the inner or the outer, kind of start unevenly wearing on the pads. Alrighty, piston seated all the way back in. A little easier without a phone strap to your wrist. Okay, let's see here. So we want the wear sensor to be on the lower left on the center pad. Actually, let's go ahead and just bring the whole thing up there. Okay, let's see what we got here. I got the AutoZone full ceramic lifetime warranty. Everybody's got a different point of view. Some people like their Wagners. I've had real good luck with these, so that's what I use. Except for okay, that was kind of some bad luck there. First video with the GoPro 7 Hero Black. And guess what, guys? It overheated on me. I got 17 minutes and 36 seconds into the video. Only on 1080p. 60 frames per second. And it overheated. You want to know what the bummer was? On my phone, it shows that it was still recording. And it showed everything. And it was even streaming my live feed to my phone so I could monitor it, but it stopped recording. So you can go ahead and back up and you can see I didn't, hit this button to stop it. I mean, it just stopped. So that's really aggravating. So I got everything done. I got it on the car, both sides, drove it around the block, went home to edit this and realized. So I just stripped the driver's side tire off again. I'm not going to go through the whole passenger side since I'm already having to double do this. But you'll get the idea. It's the same on the passenger as the driver. So I got it kind of back to where we left off. We were going over the pads. All 4 pads for both sides are the same. So you don't have any dedicated inners, outers, right side, left side. They're all the same. So that makes it kind of easy. But at any rate, when you go to put them in, you can see how it just kind of... See these spring-loaded clips I'm pushing with my finger? You just kind of line it up there on an angle like that. And then you push down as you push it in. You do that on both sides, and that's how your pads go in, okay? So, well, I hope the GoPro doesn't overheat again. Let's go ahead and get this assembly back together, okay? Get my camera angle a little better here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this and put it back on, right? These threaded sides right here, of course, go to the inside. That's going to be your 17 millimeter bolts that hold this cradle on to the assembly. And then your slide bolts are going to go right here. So let's go ahead and slide that on. And then what you want to do, I'll grab my top bolt here first. You need to line that up. Oh, I'm back in the fender. Okay, you got to line that up. You got to kind of move it with your right hand while you thread it in with your left. I already got the left started, okay? So, let me angle that down a little more. I'm gonna go ahead and get my lower one started, okay? Same thing, I'm gonna use my right hand to move it. You'll kind of feel it until I get it to thread in. And I'm threading in. I'm gonna just go until, by the way, on these fasteners, it's not a bad idea to clean them up if they need to be cleaned up and use some anti-seize. I already checked these a year ago when I got the car, so mine are clean, but you may want to consider that. Okay, so now we got the cradle back on, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna tighten it. Now, before I crank on one of them, I want each one to be snug. Okay, lower one snug. Let's go to the upper one. Now that they're both snug, I can go ahead and give them that little extra. And I'll put torque specs in now. Again, I don't do torque specs. There's just kind of a sense of feel. When you've done hundreds of brakes like me, you just kind of get that sense of feel. Okay, so we got what I'm calling the cradle on, right? Make sure you push the pads on each side so they're flush against the rotor. And keep in mind the rotor itself, you want to make sure that's flush. It may be a little bit angled because without the tire and the lug nuts, it's not held on. Now mine's holding on more perfect because I've already driven it. I've already resetted the piston. I kind of wanted to show you that, but it's not a big deal. But basically, you're going to have some wobble room on yours because you haven't set the piston yet after you retracted it. But that's okay. It's going to be about the same. Okay, then when you go to put the caliper back on, these little slide bolts right here, they're going to be kind of slid out. You may have to either use pliers. I was able to use my hands, and you're going to have to push those pins, well, bushings in a little bit so that it fits back on, because that's what floats when you're hitting your brake, okay? And you're going to know because when you go to put this on, let me get this started here and I'll kind of show you. See how mine lines up perfectly? Let me try to get closer to that. Yours will be out a little bit. Mine just lines up because it's already set. Because again, I put my brakes and I drove it. But go ahead and get your first one in. I'm going to start with the top because it's a little easier. Use your left hand to move it around. And as you can see, well, you can't see, I'm in the fender again. Let me get this angled a little better. Yeah, it's a little better, isn't it? Okay, I got my top one in. Now I want to go ahead and I want to get my bottom one in. And I'm going to have to kind of move that around until it lines up. There we go. If you have issues doing that, you can kind of use a pry bar right in here to kind of help you move it. But I was able to kind of use my hand to do that. Then we're going to go ahead and snug those up. Not super tight, but just so everything's snugged up, okay? Lower one snug. I'm going to use the extension on the top one because otherwise the brake line is going to be in the way. Now I am going to be doing my calipers and brake lines pretty quick here. So if you're watching this video, go ahead and look through my videos. And that'll be on here pretty quick. Okay, bottom one snug, top one snug. I like to use a breaker bar Or like I use the just a little slider extension. You don't want to He-Man it because these will break, but just snug and then some. You can kind of get an idea how snug I'm going there. Okay, so that's it. It's literally that simple. Now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and we're going to straighten out the wheel again, okay? And now we're good to put that tire on, which I guess I have around here. Now when you do this, because your piston's all the way back and your pads aren't holding the rotor in place, your rotor is probably going to be cockeyed. So before you snug those nuts up, what you might want to do is just kind of push it, kick it with your foot, you know, and just make sure it's flat. Again, mine's flat because mine's already been set because I lost that footage. I want to get every lug nut just seated. That's 3 of them. I'm seating the 4th one. Now that it's seated, I either want to use a torque wrench, that would be the proper way, or go ahead and make sure all 4 are tight and try to stagger it out too. Not clockwise, not counterclockwise, stagger it. A little easier with 5 lug nuts, but just do it the best you can with 4. Now for my lug nuts, I'm using the 3/4 times 16ths. Now I've replaced these. These are AutoZone ones I bought because mine were really rusty. I had to replace a couple of the studs, and all the lug nuts were all pretty beat up. So I don't know if from the factory if those would be metric or not. But at least if you get the Dorman ones, that's what you end up with. Then you're good to go ahead and put your covers on. Now, what I ended up doing, these are the cheap $30 a set ones on eBay, okay? I go ahead and line it up with my valve stem. And I just lightly work it around. Because again, these can break really easily. I bought used Toyota ones, but they were so brittle, the guy before me already had them rigged and I returned them. These are super cheap, but the price is right. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. Sorry the video had to be kind of 2 spliced together parts, but that's my first one with the GoPro 7 Hero, so. So pretty much it's going to be a learning curve trying to get this all figured out, especially if it's going to have these heating issues. It's only like 72 degrees, so I shouldn't be having heating problems, especially not at 1080p on a camera that does 4K. But at any rate, once you get done with this, go ahead and before you lower the vehicle, pump your brakes 5 or 6 times, you know, after both sides are done. That's going to seat your piston, it's going to seat the pads, it's going to align everything. Then go ahead and take it off the jack and or jack stands and give it a drive. You know, give it a few hard stops to kind of bed the brake pads, and you should be good to go. Thanks for watching.